Did you know? The Bible is full of people who looked and saw God, and then they had a dramatic response. But yet churches all over are full of people who never respond, who just sit there week after week, not seeing at all, just mentally trying to receive and understand, analyze, judge. This is wrong. We should be going to church to see and then respond to what we see, not just show up and quietly get through it and do our religious duty. Church shouldn't be about trying to obey rules, bowing or kneeling at the right time, raising your hands when everyone else does. It should be about actually seeing. There should be something to see, and when you do see, there's a response to what you see. Your hands shoot towards heaven. Your voice bursts forth with praise. You shout, you cry, melt, you respond. Christians should be the freest people on the face of the earth, but yet we usually are the most bound because we are constantly hardening ourselves to God and pushing Him away with our non-responsiveness. Maybe we think, well, if God wants to come down, He will. He will just come down and overpower all my resistance and attitude and stuff. But He's not like that. Maybe one day, but for now, if you don't want Him, He isn't going to force you. He'll just pass you by and look for someone who does. We have become used to God just passing us by. Not this week, God. I'm just not ready yet. Maybe next week. Every day, God is looking and searching for a people that He doesn't have to pass by, that really desire Him, that are open to Him and won't shut down when He shows up, that aren't embarrassed or uncomfortable or not really sure about Him. But that's not most churches. Sadly, God isn't in most churches for the simple fact that we don't want Him to be. We are withheld and non-responsive. Well, I just wasn't raised that way to show emotion in church. We believe in being reverent. Well, that's okay. But unfortunately, what a lot of churches call being reverent really just means being bound. Churches all over are full of quiet reverence, not because God is so present, but because we think God is like a mean librarian, ready to shush us if we get out of hand. There is time for reverence. Like when God's presence enters in and His holiness completely overwhelms you and you don't even want to move or breathe because He is so close. But I don't think this is what's happening in most churches. Let's be honest, they are just bound. They have created a bound church where no one can really get free and then make them feel guilty because they aren't free and then sentence them to penance for their sins. In most churches, there's no real connection to God. It's been removed and reserved only for the special few. And even if we do start to open up and we do start to see, we usually get hung up on what's keeping us bound. We see, but our response is constrained. What will others think? I'm dressed too nice. I can respond here in this seat quietly. God sees my heart. We become so used to and so good at not responding that it's so much harder now to even see anymore. We have churches everywhere full of people who are non-responsive, stuck and bound to their seats. And the more they think about it, the more they analyze, the more they look around to see if others are responding so maybe they can sneak in too. The more they delay, the more bound they become. Week after week, the pastor pours out the heart of God. Jesus shows up, and hardly anyone responds. We just sit there in our seats like deer in the headlights, uncomfortable, like in school hoping the teacher doesn't call on us, embarrassed if we have to do anything. Most leave even more bound than when they came in. It's not God's fault. It's not Jesus's. It's us. It's our response or lack of response. Until we are able to respond, God can do very little. Imagine Peter, who had denied Jesus 3 times. He went back to fishing, to what was familiar. Imagine what went through his mind every day, the bondage associated with denying Christ. And now Jesus was gone. Imagine that day when Peter saw Jesus on the shore. Imagine if he would have hesitated. Oh well, I denied Him 3 times. He's probably mad at me. What will all the other disciples think of me? Oh, the water looks rough today. I can quietly row this boat to shore. I'm sure Jesus would understand. I'll get Him next time. It's kind of an awkward moment right now. When I get home, I'll really press into God. No, in that very instance when Peter saw Jesus, His response was instantaneous. He jumped. And I believe as he jumped, all that bondage and torment broke off of him. All of that old Peter broke off. He saw Jesus. There was no hesitation. He just responded. He didn't think. He didn't analyze. He jumped. God is so amazing. He is doing so much good. He deserves a response. But we are so bound and so locked up. We have created altar calls catering to our bondages, where every eye is closed and every head bowed, so no one can see us when we do respond. Could you imagine that day if Jesus would have said, "Okay, disciples in the boat, with every head bowed and every eye closed, whoever denied me 3 times and is sorry, please raise your hand." Peter would have peeked around to make sure no one was looking, and then sheepishly raised his hand. Thankfully, he just jumped. He just responded. His need to respond overpowered everything else. We sit in church every week, denying God in our lives. And when we see Jesus, we choose to stay in the boat, afraid of looking silly, afraid of really letting go. The answer is so simple. Open your eyes and look, and really see God. And in that moment when you see, respond with your entire being, without reservation, without hesitation, without fear. Church isn't about following rules or maintaining appearances. It's about seeing and responding and letting everything else fall away. We open our hearts up so much that God shows up. And when He does, when we actually see Him, we don't hesitate. We jump. We respond so completely that transformation becomes inevitable.